Alright, hope you're all doing wonderful. Today we're gonna review the AP Micro, Unit 5. If you guys got questions in the chat, any sort, drop them at any time, and I will go through as much as I can, answer them to my best. And I'll do my best to follow through with the chat with my other monitor on my other side of the screen. And as for the lectures, all of them are recorded and all of them will be posted on our YouTube channel. I believe Unit 2 and 3 are going up sometime tonight because we just got them uploaded to our cloud storage, and then we're gonna transfer them out over to YouTube sometime tonight or tomorrow. But definitely you're gonna see all of them up before this weekend, just to be prepared for the exam. And also, on Sunday I am planning to have a cram session, so bring your questions. We'll go through as much as we can in terms of important details, important ideas that what is really going to be important that you should be prepared for the exam. And I do assume most of you are going to be taking the exam, so I'll run with that assumption as well. So as for this lecture, we are not registered. We are not endorsed by the College Board. Their AP is a registered trademark from them. Just set that out of the way. And this session is again prepared by us at 5 Hive. We've put in a lot of effort over the past years, and this is exactly what you're seeing, the outcome. So a lot of lectures, a lot of mock exams, a lot of free resources that are starting to come out not only here, but also on our website at 5hive.org. So be sure to check that out. And if any of the stuff that you're hearing interests you in any way, shape, or form, be sure to apply and join us. We love having volunteers, and we review applications on a rolling basis. As for the feedback survey that I just sent out in the chat, please be sure to fill out the survey sometime during this lecture or closer to the end to provide feedback on what you like today, or what you want to see more so be done differently. And all of this feedback is 100% anonymous. It's a very short survey to help you and ultimately prepare other lectures, whether tomorrow or this weekend, and ultimately really lock in and prepare for the exam, which is, I think, all of our common goals. And really, I do want to help you strive for a 5, and really the content that I'm able to deliver is only as good as it gets if I can meet your study needs ultimately. As for Unit 5, it is very similar to Unit 2 in the context of yes, it is the resource market. And what this means, the factor market, think of factors as like your 4 factors. Like, you're producing land, you've got labor, you've got entrepreneurship, capital. These are all resources, which the College Board likes to use the idea of factors, which are just going to be your resources here. Which here instead, we learned in Unit 2 that you have your supply and demand curve, where producers are going to produce supply, and your consumers are going to consume. They're going to consume the goods as producers, because whereas we as individuals, we actually consume these goods. And what we can do to underline this relationship is with this here, the circular flow model is to showcase some of the outcomes as a result of the supply and the product, and as well as your factor markets. So here, funny pointer, I want the pen so I can start doodling here. So here you have the product market here. This is going to be the outside. The inside of the curve is going to be more so relevant towards Unit 5. You have factors or a lot of your resources, inputs that are going into the product market, so that businesses or firms are able to make goods, and ultimately these goods come out as products, which is what we as household or consumers in this case, we buy it, and we buy their goods, we buy their products, and ultimately there's also an interrelationship between that, where the resources that you consume, you ultimately you're also giving back. So while you're taking, you're also giving back into the factor market in some other way. And oftentimes it is labor that you provide. So for example, if you want to buy some of the stuff in the product market, you also have to contribute, and often it's by working in the factor market, by supplying your labels labor. So, for example, working any job, manufacturing as an example, that would be the instance of the factor market here in such instance. Ultimately, your product market would be operating much differently, where you have in exchange of resources, you have income coming in as well, and as well as your goods, you're trading them for money and vice versa here as well. Here again, Unit 5, you will focus on a few key terms, which ultimately you're going to have to start plugging into graphs, which you lead to a few factors, such as your marginal product, which is ultimately the additional output that you create from hiring an additional worker. So that would just be how much more you get just by hiring one more worker. Your marginal revenue product is that additional is the additional money you generate from hiring an additional worker. That would just be like how much extra money that you get out as a result of the worker, and you also factor in the cost of that of the labor as well. As for your marginal resource cost, that would be your additional cost in hiring your additional worker. So again, marginal is going to be a really important term in this, both in this course and as well particularly in this unit as well, where you're not only thinking about the picture as a whole, but also how much more are you paying to get how much more. Here, very similar to some of the product market graphs, you see the idea, I'm sure we have all heard it many times, that MR is equal to MC, your marginal revenue being your marginal cost. Here, firms will again hire workers up to the point, very similar, MR is equal to MC, where their marginal resource cost is equal to their marginal revenue product. And what this means is that they'll keep hiring workers as long as they think it's worth hiring this worker, and that worker will actually generate benefit for the firm as a result of this. And again, this would ultimately firms will not hire beyond this point, because that's like hiring a liability, someone who's not able to contribute in the kitchen as a result. So, for example, again here, the reason why your your MRP is gonna decrease is because you have it as a result of diminishing marginal returns. And what this just means is you have too many cooks in the kitchen, as an example. So, as you have 2, 3, 4. That's when things really start to become more efficient. You can specialize, you can focus on things that you're able to be most efficient in. Therefore, everybody's able to increase their output as a result, to increase productivity. However, the problem with that is when you're adding more and more resources, or workers in this case, into the kitchen, which is a fixed resource, your kitchen probably isn't going to get any bigger as a result. So you have people in each other's way, you have people blocking each other, so you're gonna have some person spilling the soup, or poor coordination because you have so many people as a result. So that would just result in your marginal resource cost increasing, and then therefore eventually intersecting, which ultimately creates your profit maximization point. Now, with that being said, as I've mentioned, you have your demand for labor, which is in this case, your firm will be demanding that labor, and as well as your supply that you as workers or consumers, laborers in the market, you would be supplying that labor. Here, first and foremost, we can start off with demand. Again, your curve is going to be downward sloping, because as your wage falls, workers want to hire more and more workers, because this is ultimately when they're able to get things for cheaper, right? You'd probably want to buy more and more, and in this case, hiring more and more workers. Your MRP here is found MR is times MP, which you ultimately find the firm's demand. And again, finding the demand is very similar back in Unit 2 as to finding the demand, because ultimately it would just be the combination of demand schedules of multiple people. So if you were if you were looking at hiring someone for $10, this firm A would hire 3 workers, firm B would hire 2. Ultimately, at $10, you would hire 5, and so on and so forth. And as your wage falls, you're gonna have more and more workers that they're willing to hire as a result. Now, as for the supply of labor, again, your curve is going to go upwards, which ultimately leads us into a very similar situation here, actually, with your supply of labor resulting in a inverse relationship with your demand. Here, your supply of workers will increase as your wage increases. So, if you were working for $5, how many of you would work for $5? Probably not many of you. But as your wage increases 10, a bit more, 15, 20, that would be a much higher wage. Therefore, more of you would be willing to work. And then as a result, if you get to $20, $25, that number would keep increasing, and it is increasing because you would want to make more and more money. Again, we as consumers also want to make money, and if opportunities are there to make that money, as a result, we make money as a result. Again, if you have any questions, I see a couple of you typing. Be sure to ask away in the chat, and I will answer them as much as I can. So feel free to drop them in the chat as they come in. Now, by placing all of them, both of these curves in together, we ultimately, very similar back to Unit 2, Unit 3 as well, you ultimately come up with two graphs as a result. Here you have the supply and demand of labor as your, think of it as your industry. My writing is okay. This would be your industry graph, where you end up with, by drawing both curves, you end up with an equilibrium price very similar to Unit 2 here. At this point, this would be the price that is set up by the free market, where firms would hire. And when you have side by side graphs as well, again, you want to draw an arrow directly to show that this is going to be the equilibrium wage, which is also the equilibrium wage that firms will have to hire at. And then here we see the demand curve here is going to be your marginal revenue product, which again here your marginal resource cost, which again think of it as your wage. How much are you going to be paying each worker, right? So as you increase it, you cannot pay one worker more or pay another worker. As for the industry is going to be the collection of firms as a result, and as well as a firm is just going to be one individual player in that entire market. So in monopolies or monopsonies in this case, that's when your firm is the industry and therefore there's only one. However, right now, as we look at perfect competition in the factor market right now, it remains very similar to Unit 3, where you have both the firm and the industry as well. The industry is the market, yes. And as for that, by drawing it over to this side, we ultimately find this as the wage. This is going to be your equilibrium wage, and as well as the quantity that you should hire. Here your MRC equals MRP. And then here again, if hiring down here would not your marginal resource cost would be higher than your product. Therefore, you probably should not hire here. It's like hiring someone that's paying someone for more than what they're worth, which is what not a firm should do. Ultimately, firms will hire up to this point and only up to here, because the benefit that they are able to yield here is going to be much higher than their cost of hiring them here. Now with this as an example, we can find that the quantity of labor, the output that each worker is able to the total output that they're able to generate. Here you can find the marginal output by finding the additional. So what I like to do to find the total product with the marginal is that by adding these two, you get this number. And you can do the same adding these two, you would get these numbers. Just to make things clear with calculating marginal as the additional. Your product price is going to remain the same, because ultimately your wage has to remain equal, because wage discrimination is not permissible in this market yet. However, wage discrimination is a topic that I will discuss later on. Your marginal your marginal revenue product would start higher and continue to go down. This would be calculated from MP multiplied by your price as a result. This is also going to be MR times MP, your marginal revenue. To get this, so 8 times 5 is 40, 6 times 5, 30. This number we can notice continues to go down. Your marginal resource cost here, $5 as well. Now we can see here with this as an assumption that hiring each worker is $5. How much should each worker want to hire? So feel free to go for that in the chat and dump it in the chat whenever you get the chance. Since product price would be the same, would this be the factor market in a perfectly competitive firm? Yes, it would be, because your resource cost, if you elaborate in your marginal resource cost, it would be the same in terms of the perfect market price. However, in terms of your product price, the price of the product is going to be more or less negligible in this case, because right now the focus here is going to be your factor market. And usually what happens with the College Board, usually they're not going to ask one thing and then another right in the same question. They would do so in a very distinct way so that you would not be confused as well. Hopefully that does clarify. And yes, it is for workers that they should hire. And the reason why being this is that your MRP, they would hire again the maximization rule here. MRP is equal to MRC. Here it would equal here. And why would they not hire here? It's because your cost would be up here, would be exceeding as a result. Now, evaluating some of the changes in your factor and supply market, it's going to be very similar to shifting the supply and demand curve. So again, these would kind of be the shifters of the demand curve. So when you shift the demand curve in Unit 2, for example, technology increases, technology decreases, or substitutes become more available, those costs go down, costs go up, any of these factors, these ultimately shift the demand curve either left, right, or whatnot, and ultimately we have the product demand here. If your product demand is going to increase, therefore you're going to need more workers to create and meet that demand, therefore it would shift left or right. And then this would go same as with worker productivity, where if your workers are going to be more and more productive due to increased technology, you're going to need less and less workers, because each worker is able to do more and they're able to generate a greater marginal revenue product, which ultimately makes the marginal resource cost feel relatively less expensive as a result. And as well as your production substitutes. You have machinery and technology available that can reduce the need of hiring workers or hire less workers as a justification here. What this means with product substitutes is that you have machine technology, all of these are able to change the need of workers. So if, again, this leads right to productivity. If your workers are going to be more productive, you're going to need less workers of them. And similarly, machine automation doing the jobs of individuals. And this also leads to the argument of AI and as well as robots. As you have more robots, you're going to need less workers manning stations and operating things, where they are able to do so, help firms cut costs and ultimately maximize profit. Because as a business, they need to make money, and they love to do that as profit maximizing. In any market, whether you're perfect or imperfect competition, they will always continue to seek lowering costs and maximizing profits. As for your supply of labor, very similar. You also see your wage competition. Your wage competition would just be a lot of companies out there. So I don't know if any of you doom scroll on LinkedIn or look at job postings online. But a lot of them really like to advertise competitive wage, beneficial wage, competitive wage. All of these really as ways to like drive potential hires from your firm away from other firms or other competitors that are also looking to hire. And the reason why is that as individuals we want to make as much money as we can, similar to how firms want to earn as much money as they can. So if you could work in fast food for $15-$20 an hour, whereas you could get another job somewhere else as a manager for $40-$50, you would probably work there. Actually, it would probably be the better assumption to say that these are both same positions. If you're working in position A for $15 and position B is offering for $18, this would ultimately shift the demand away from the $15 towards the $18, which if you were the $15, your curve would shift this way, whereas your $18, if you were the $18 firm hiring for more, it would increase as a result. Similarly, population change. Is there going to be more people willing and able to work in the market or not? As you have more, you're going to have more supply of labor, therefore also as a result. Barriers to entry as well. For example, education. Do you need work experience to enter as a result? And then again, your preference for leisure as work-life balances. Now, we can use this as an example now. What would happen to the firm and market graph if the government decides to increase the number of work permits they decide to accept as a result? So feel free to go through the answering this question. Yeah. As for the 18, it would ultimately increase or decrease it for different firms. If you are hiring less, it would a wage increase would increase the increase the wage. It should it should shift it left because it is because they're demanding less labor for when your wage is higher. Your quantity would increase. So which one of these two curves would you shift, and but also where would you shift that curve as a result as well? As for this question, sorry, I think you meant your question. As it should shift left because firms are less likely to demand for labor as your wage increases. So if your wage was lower, your demand for labor would increase by shifting right, and you would be right on the instance of it being able to shift left. Yeah, 18 is correct. Yeah, perfect, no problem. Yeah, absolutely. So, first of all, this would be the industry graph where your supply for labor would increase as a result. What this means with permits actually is you increase the number of people coming into your country to work, ultimately increasing the supply of labor. And then again, as I mentioned, very similar shifts to the supply and demand curve. Here, your wage ultimately goes down because of this competition, and as well because of the number of competition looking for job as well. Again, remember that in perfectly competitive factor markets, they are price takers, which we will get into 5.3. Now, similarly with this, we can also draw the graph with the I'll switch to blue. With the industry graph where you have your MRC, your MRP. Ultimately, what this leads to is your wage going down as a result because you have more options to pick from, more people that you could hire from as a result. Similarly, enforcing your minimum wage, which are ultimately very similar to price floor and ceilings, would also impact it. So, for example, if you were to place a price ceiling, or sorry, a price floor up here, you would have a shortage of labor here, where your supply of labor would be increasing, would be more than your demand of labor. And conversely, here actually with a price ceiling, you would also ultimately end up in a situation like this, where you have a surplus. I don't know, sorry, a shortage. I wouldn't know how a price maximum wage would work in reality, but this is just a hypothetical as well. Now, again, we do want to note that they are price takers. Again, your arrow is going to be very important here in this instance, going out this way. Your arrow to highlight that they take the wage from the market and hire at that rate. Now, in perfectly competitive labor markets, your firms are going to be wage takers, or sorry, wage takers. Yeah, you have no control over it. Similar to in perfect competition, you have no control over the price. Here, your market structure for the resource market is going to be independent of that of the output market. So what that means is, just because a firm is in a monopoly product market does not mean they hire in a monopolistic market as a result. And the reason being that is that both of these operate independently. So think of they could be the only employer. However, they could also be one of many firms in a market as a result as well. Here again, your rule MRC MRP still stands, and as well as whatever you do to shift it, the firm will also adapt as well. Yes, it is allocatively efficient when there is no dead weight loss. When MRC is equal to MRP. Yeah. There shouldn't be dead weight loss in perfectly competitive labor markets, but dead weight loss is something that should occur in imperfectly competitive markets as a result. Now, again, your supply marginal resource cost is going to be flat again, because wage discrimination does not exist in perfect competition here. Your market structure, again, your resource market is independent, and as well as your output market here is going to be similar shaped in that way. Again, this is also your rule. Whatever you do to shift it, this would be your supply curve. If your supply curve goes up or down, it does shift as a result, following so as a result. Now, with this as an example, the supply of labor here would reduce. An increase in supply actually would reduce the equilibrium rate by decreasing it, where your firm is going to directly respond. When it lowers down to here, it lowers down to here. However, if they were to hire here, you're not going to have as many workers willing and able to be compensated at this rate, because they're going to other firms that are going to hire them for much more instead, which will ultimately lead them into a much bigger problem and forcing them to follow the market, follow the industry formatted wage as well. Now, your least cost rule here is going to be important in understanding how how an industry should combine their markets, the resources that can minimize these costs in order to maximize their profits. Here the formula is going to be your marginal revenue product of one good divided by the marginal cost of the other, which is equal to the same of another good as well. And it should equal 1 because your MRP is equal to MRC. And the reason why it is 1 is because when you divide anything by itself is going to be 1, 10 divided by 10 is 1, 100 divided by 100 is 1. This is where they're able to maximize their resources as a result by hiring as much as they can until the cost is equal to the benefit and not exceeding so. Also, if you haven't already, be sure to fill out this short feedback survey on what you thought of today's review session. If you found it helpful, or if you would like to see things done differently, please be sure to fill out the form to let me know what you think. If you have any comments, any concerns, anything you want to see done differently, be sure to do so. It is a quick survey that I highly encourage you to do, and it is anonymous as well. So when you get the chance, when you leave or closer to the end of this lecture, be sure to do it. You're more than welcome to have the tab open as a reminder too. Now, as for your monopolistic market here, you're very similar to monopoly. Think of it as a monopoly in the factor market, where you have a single buyer, where there's only one firm that can that manipulates the demand. So this is the one firm that is able to hire all the workers. So all the workers are going there for work and going there as a result to gain in order to work. Here, the single buyer, for example, an instance, I think a lot of small energy towns in North America are really good examples, where these towns are all really in the middle of nowhere, and the only employment opportunity that is able to be provided is by them as a result. Here you have wage makers, which are they're the ones that determine the price and quantity, which in this instance, how much they're willing to hire, and how many workers they're actually going to employ as well. As the wage maker, they can set as high or as low prices. Here they want to set them as low as they can in order to set so as well. Here you also have barriers to entry. Another firm cannot just simply locate right next to you and say, hey, I'm going to take away some of your demand and let's make things a little bit more competitive and lower the wage. Unfortunately, that would not happen as a result. Hershey. Okay, that's interesting to say the least. As for your land, labor, capital, and entrepreneurship as well, those four factors are going to be very important in understanding this unit as well. Yeah, high barriers could definitely include patents as well. So, but that would be more so in your monopolistic market. In the factor market, however, is think of your barriers to entry here as how why can't other firms start hiring in that market as well? For example, if other firms cannot establish themselves because of barriers to entry, then they also cannot hire there as well, which you could also think of that as a way as well. Entrepreneurship, theoretically, you could buy it. I think it's more so done in the way of buying other people's talents. I think you're just buying their usage rights of their goods. So I think it's like selling your invention to someone else, I think. But I think that is a really good question. Yeah, definitely stuff to do with business structures for sure. Here you're going to have your graph for your profit maximizing monopolistically competitive market here. Your MRC again, MRP at this point right here, spot on. Again, you're going to have it, I don't know if depending on how comfortable you are with the unit 4 with monopoly. I don't if you do think that this graph does look very familiar with unit 4 monopolies, feel free to let me know, because it is very similar with the monopoly graph. Here you don't have Mr. Darp, and nor do you have one line. Here you have two lines where your marginal resource cost and your supply of labor branch off as two separate lines. And the reason this is going to be very similar back to unit 4, where your demand is going to be greater than your marginal revenue, because as you need to lower your price, you're going to have to as you need to hire more workers, you're going to have to lower the price. And conversely, here in this unit, as you want to hire more and more workers, you're going to have to lower the pay rate in order to hire all of these workers to support your operations as well. Here you're going to have that your marginal resource cost is going to be greater than your supply of labor here as a result. Where your monopolies are going to be your wage makers that must increase that wage as they want to hire additional workers. Your wage increase per worker has to be constant and paid out to all workers as well. Again, highlighting that wage discrimination is, again, not possible, because it is very illegal in a lot of places. I'm pretty sure it's illegal in the United States as well. Double check me on that, because I am not American, and yeah. Now that's just pretty much all of Unit 4. I do have a few multiple choice sample progress check questions, so feel free to answer them in the chat. So here with the first question, where a company starts to sell shoes in the oligopolistic market, here your marginal product of capital per dollar is of dollar spent is $10. So that just means if you spend $1, you get $10. And then your wage rate is going to be $15. Now, what would be the marginal product if it was $15? So feel free to answer in the chat. Your marginal resource cost, I'm pretty sure it's above it, because if you want to hire more workers, you or sorry, how do I put this into words? Your marginal resource cost is goes above it because hold up. So again, it is very similar to Unit 4. Is that you have to as you increase one, you have to keep paying all of them the same way, and as a result, you pay you pay the rate of the last worker, which the last worker translates to that wage as a result. Your marginal revenue, your marginal resource cost, again, it has to they have to increase. As they increase it for one, they have to increase it for all. So, for example, here, if one worker here is willing to work for less, another here for less, all of them have to work at this rate. But yeah, you kind of got me there, but yeah, pretty much. So you have to pay them all the same rate. Yeah, you would have to hire, in order to hire more, you have to pay all of them the same rate, and as well you also will have to pay them more as well. As for wage discrimination, first and foremost, it's very illegal. We don't support it. We don't endorse it. So with wage discrimination, you actually end up, in imperfect competition, you end up with deadweight loss, which would just be this triangle that I am highlighting right here, this beautiful triangle. And this would just be your market inefficiency, because you have lost benefit as a result. Your wage would have to go up here above your labor, and therefore price discrimination is paying everybody at the same rate above as well. And then without wage discrimination, you would have to pay everybody at the same rate. Therefore, you would end up with a equilibrium. You would end up with consumer surplus and producer surplus in a very similar way as well. You could think of it that way. Has it been done on the AP exam? I doubt it, but there are definitely, the College Board does release past FRQs online, so you could definitely check it out. I'm not too sure if they have before, but yeah. But I don't think wage discrimination is too important, because this unit actually doesn't use the concept of wage discrimination too much in the CED, so I don't think it is too big to worry about. But you can very connect the content Content, yeah. It is a concept, but I think it's not going to be too important. If there are other things that you want to focus on, I think those are definitely going to be the other things that you should focus on. Wage discrimination, I'm pretty sure. I have a feeling it's probably not going to be on the test, but you might want to double check if they're going to be an FRQ, because I don't see a mention of wage discrimination in the CED. Holy hell, my laptop's dying. Oops. Yeah, definitely. So if you did take the chance to answer the question, thank you. That's just pretty much all of today's review session. Tomorrow I will be back with a Unit 6 review session, which is on the last unit, and as well as before a cram session that I'm planning to host this weekend. So again, if you haven't already, please be sure to fill out the short survey form on what your thoughts are on today's lecture, because it is very helpful to understand what it is very helpful in understanding what you like, what you want to see differently, and how I could really help improve your needs as well. And if you haven't already, be sure to click interested on the Unit 6 and review sessions on that as well. Here you could also be sure to click interested. As for the answer here, your the product capital per dollar. So think of it, you spend $1 to get $10. Here you're going to have to spend $15 no matter what. So I think we can draw a table here. I'm not the best at it. MRC is going to be 15 and across the board. Hopefully my handwriting's legible. So if you hire workers. Holy hell, my writing's really... Marginal product of capital. Sorry, I misread it. It's for your marginal products of labor when the wage rate is $15 after the firm, assuming it minimizes the cost. So your $15 is going to be your cost. Your marginal product is how much money you make from your additional dollar. So you spend you get $10 to yield $15. And again, you spend $10 and your MP is going to be 10. Your MR is going to be 15 as a result. So by multiplying 10 and 15, you get 150, which should be your answer of E. Your answer should be E. Yeah, for sure. The presentations are all on here. I sent it earlier. I'll send it again just in case you miss it. And that's pretty much much of today's session. Again, if you haven't already, please be sure to click interested on the Unit 6 and the Unit the end of course cram session for the review session. And again, if you haven't already, please be sure to fill out this short lecture feedback survey. Your feedback is greatly appreciated. It's anonymous and it will help you help me improve for future lectures, what you want to see, what you want to see be done differently to meet your needs as a result as well. And that's just pretty much all of today.